Hello everybody, this is Kent MRVHS and welcome to another episode of our Wainrider Wednesdays weekly updates for the upcoming mod Total War Wainriders for Rome Total War's Alexander expansion. And in this one we're taking a second look, I'm doing a second pass at the Dwarven settlements because this is totally on me, but further developments had been made with the Dwarven settlement design. And so I had not taken those into account. I had not updated my build, essentially, to the most recent update when I made the previous video about the League of the North. And there have been some changes to the Dwarven settlement model since then. So I thought I needed to take a second look at that. And in order to make this video a little more, than just a couple of minutes, I thought we could also take a look at all the Dwarven settlements in Middle-earth, and just to sort of give you dwarf players out there an idea of where you might want to go, what type of areas you might want to check out. So here we've got our Berez Doom. This is your capital as the dwarves, the League of the North faction. And this is sporting a more angular, perhaps, more mountainous-looking kind of Dwarven settlement with some more pronounced towers. But I think really the new feature here is the gatehouse on the south. And this is particularly important if we take a look over at Erebor, which has the, to me, it looks like maybe a slightly different... Yeah, there's a bit of a difference here in terms of the tower layouts. We've got one tower in the back at Erebor, but not here. But that great gate aiming directly south makes a lot of sense for the Erebor settlement. While we're in the area, we can also notice that there is a rebel Dwarven settlement just to your northeast in Kibbelbund. And there's not a ton up here, but there are a few. If you remember 4th Age Total War, there were 1 or 2 Dwarven settlements in the Grey Mountains that you could try to find. And that'll certainly be the case for if you're playing the League of the North or if you're playing the Highland Tribes. And speaking of the Highland Tribes, we take another look at them here because we've got not only the one settlement that they start with, but another rebel independent settlement to the north. Now, in terms of functionality, not all of these settlements, I believe, are going to play the same, right? It will depend on whether they've got dwarves or orcs to some extent, and all of that, sort of how you'll be able to make use of these settlements may not be the same in all cases. But at any rate, these are the types of settlements that you may want to focus on as a player of a Dwarven faction, such as the Highland Tribes, who can make use of Dwarven units. Another one that starts off in nobody's hands, or in rebel hands rather, is Nareg Zagil. This is a settlement that, again, you may remember from 4th Age Total War, just to the southwest of the Sea of Rune. And this one, by the time a Dwarven faction can get its hands on this one may have already fallen to a faction like the Western Horde, potentially. Now, I can't remember exactly what they'll be able to do with Dwarven settlements. But it's something that I should know, but I've simply forgotten. But at any rate, they will be able to make some use of it. The AI does like to target rebel settlements, so I imagine it would be very difficult for you to get this before any of the others have. Maybe even the Avari would take it, although I don't see them as rushing for this particular settlement early on. A little bit further west in the Misty Mountains, we've got another couple of Dwarven-style settlements, or orc holds at this point. To the north, the rebel-held Ogol, and to the south, to cause trouble for the northern eaves of Mirkwood and potentially reaching to the territory of the League of the North fairly easily, is an orcish faction settlement, Urug, down here. So this is going to be an area of some activity and interest to players of the Dwarven faction. Even Khazad Dûm might be able to get up in this area relatively quickly. Of course, in this region, we also have Gundabad. Now, ignore the allies message here, orc capital allies. I've got League of the North played up currently, and I'm thinking this is because we base this off of 4th Age Total War, and League of the North is probably based on Dale. The orcs are based on the Bjornings, I believe, and those factions did start as allies. Again, this is just more evidence that this is a work in progress, and that we are focusing on sort of more fundamental things at the moment than just arranging the alliances at the campaign start. So we're doing lots of other work currently. But this is Gundabad. Now, this does have a unique settlement model. It's certainly a settlement of some great importance, and it is not only for the dwarves, of course, but for the orcs who currently inhabit it. So this is going to be, I imagine, a very important target for several factions in the mod. We'll, of course, take a closer look at the orcish faction in a future video. Now, we already saw Khazad Dûm when we previewed the Durin's folk faction, but here it is again. Just in case that model has changed, it may have Again, I confess I don't have the best visual memory necessarily, but Valor has been hard at work polishing this thing, and just when he thinks he's done, right? Just when he thinks, you know what, I'm about ready to get on with my life and leave this modding behind me, you come back to the Discord and find that he's taken several more passes at something and just done that little extra bit of work. So you do it to yourself, Valor, but we love you for it. So this is Khazad Doom, in case there have been any big updates since then. Let's now take a look over at the Blue Mountains, because we haven't seen them really before. They have maybe featured a little bit when we looked at the High Elves, but we didn't explore the region in terms of what it might mean for Dwarven settlements. But there is a Dwarven settlement down here, and there is another one to the north as well we'll look at shortly. These do fit in very nicely into the landscape, right? They've got that sort of Dwarven settlement model. But they're initially held by rebels, and as I've said before, in the context of some other videos for Wainriders, this was a kind of a tough decision initially. Like, what do we do with the dwarves of the Blue Mountains? There seem to have been dwarves of the Blue Mountains, but they did absolutely nothing throughout all of the Third Age. They seem to have taken the First Age particularly hard, as you would imagine, because, you know, half of the Blue Mountains were destroyed, essentially. But the settlements that were there, we're not sure exactly what happened to them. I think there is some indication that they were damaged, maybe outright destroyed. If you look at maps in the Silmarillion, Nogrod and Belagost are extremely close to one another. So it's not necessarily the case that these Dwarven settlements would correspond to those two. If this is like Belagost, for example, this one wouldn't be Nogrod, right? They're just too far away. But at any rate, there seem to have been some dwarves living probably in the eastern parts of the Blue Mountains, and so we put those settlements there. Now, as to who is going to end up with them, who knows? It's going to be a real free-for-all in the north, and it'll be interesting to see how the war develops between Arnor and Angmar. Of course, the High Elves are going to be involved. You've got the Black Forest tribes who may get in on the action as well. Maybe the orcs will get involved. But if you're playing as a Dwarven faction like Khazad Doom, it might be a point of some pride to head west and see if you can just take over these provinces, because they are provinces that you can own. This one is called, what is it? Eredluin Dales. This one here, Bizarre Doom. And so it's not a huge province. It doesn't control the whole mountains, right? The low mountains of the Eredluin are actually inaccessible terrain. But it does command this pass down into the Loon Valley. So that is one strategic concern, and there are some more rebel settlements in slightly different locations in the north as well that other factions might grab, or you as a Dwarven faction on your way to the Blue Mountains for those bragging rights may grab. Of course, there are High Elves down here who may get there first. And then here we've got the Eredluin Fells. Again, a much smaller province in terms of area than it was in 4th Age Total War, when it, I think moved all the way out into here. But at any rate, I think that covers the Dwarven-style settlements, or the mountain holds, at any rate, that you can find playing in Total War Wainriders. So I hope you looked at this. I hope you enjoyed this look at the settlements, at the distribution, and at the models themselves. When we take a look at the Orcish faction, we're going to take a more in-depth look at the Misty Mountains, in particular the strategic concerns for the Orcs. But I don't think we're going to do them next. We've spent a lot of time in the north, and so I think it's time now for us to head back into the south, perhaps, to take a look at another Dunedain faction that we have been dancing around for quite some time. I hope you'll join me in the next update. Until then, everybody, take care.